ain't no funeral home. It ain't the Terradome neither. Welcome to hell.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Happy New Year! Okay. Cue the applause for me for a second. Alright, now that I rupture everybody's eardrum. What up, everybody? It's your boy Walter Doom back for another episode of Let's Talk About Horror, the horror podcast where we talk about any and everything related to the genre. Yes, and we got a packed show today, you guys. Oh yeah, your boy is back. I told you I'll be back. You thought I was gonna leave out of here this 2019 without giving you guys a 2019 rankings list? Y'all must be bugging. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And just to show you guys how much 2019 means to me, Chucky, hit that laugh one more time.
Fucking nuts.
Oh yeah. So everybody, yeah, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, you guys, we are back. And I am going to talk about the horror movies that I've watched throughout the year. I am pretty much going to rank them from worst to least. Now, for you guys that are probably going to listen to this all the way through, and this is my opinion on what I think is the best to worst movies, or worst to best movies, however the fuck I worded it earlier. Keep in mind, this is just only my opinion. My opinion is just my opinion only. It could be your opinion too if you want it to be, but other than that, my opinions don't reflect your opinion. My thoughts don't reflect your thoughts. This is just my thoughts that I'm putting out there. Also, there are some movies that came out this year I did not even see. So, as like an honorable mention, here are some of the movies that you probably won't hear at all, or actually honorable and dishonorable mentions, I should say, because there are some movies that were god fucking awful that I just did not want to see at all. But here's my list of honorable and dishonorable movies that I did not see to rank on this list. So one would be my WCW Dora Madison movie, Bliss. I have not seen that movie at all. Hopefully I get to see it. It comes out next year on Shudder. Next month on the 30th. So I am hoping to watch that when it comes out. Another movie, Daniel Isn't Real. I heard about this movie was really good. I believe Patrick Schwarzenegger is in this movie and he does a really good job. I forget the other kid's name that's in this film too, that they said was also doing a real good job in it. But I have not seen Daniel Isn't Real. Prodigy, I did not want to fucking see that movie, so we can move on from that one. Pet Sematary, I've been trying to see that movie, and funny thing, I heard that this movie was really terrible, so I am really glad that I didn't even see this movie at all. But yeah, I tried to see this movie as many times as possible. Each time I tried to go out and see it, I ended up getting barred some type of way, either on timing or I just brought shit with me that I could not necessarily take back because I had nowhere to put that shit. So yeah, I didn't see Pet Sematary, but I'm kind of glad I didn't. I heard it was awful. Moving on. I have not seen Dr. Sleep. Also, I just never got around to seeing it. I haven't even seen the Joker also, which I'm also upset. And I know Joker, I know some people try and claim the Joker is kind of horror, but it only got horror aspects in it. Yeah, I haven't seen a Joker either, and I haven't seen Doctor Sleep. I haven't gotten a chance to go out and see it. I haven't seen Moss, so don't worry, I did not see that piece of shit movie. It won't be on my list. If I did, it would have been at the bottom. I believe I mentioned Brightburn also, but if I didn't, I haven't seen Brightburn 2. I could have watched it actually on someone's Facebook Live video premiere. Someone actually premiered Brightburn on the Facebook chat. I watched maybe like 1 or 2 minutes of that shit and was like, I'm done. And I have not also watched 3 from Hell, and I think that will pretty much round all those honorable and dishonorable movies. I heard 3 from Hell was shit anyway. I've been waiting to watch this movie for the longest, but I heard it was total garbage, which I'm actually really disappointed to hear, because considering this is Sid Haig's last film in the whole like Rob Zombie universe, because he passed away this year. Again, RIP for him. Yeah, those were the movies I did not see, so nobody start getting mad or commenting like, well, you didn't put, even though no one leaves a comment anyway. Just in case. So we are going to go ahead and jump into this rankings list. Alright, so I have 31 films, believe it or not, 31 films that I've watched throughout the whole entire year. Without further ado, coming in at number 31, Teresa and Allison. And I am going to give you guys, just so we're not here all night or this becomes a 3-hour thing, because I could probably go on a whole rant about certain movies and just talk shit about that. So what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to talk about the movie, give you guys a name, probably give you my idea of the film. Well, not my idea, my thoughts about the film, some plot points, maybe the actors and actresses. I don't know if I don't feel like it's going to be too long. And yeah. So, like I said, starting off, we got Teresa and Allison, which is starring Ariel Hope and Sarah Schuss as Allison. Oh my god, I am so terrible when it comes to, like, saying things. Honestly, you guys, I just woke up from a nap, so yeah. This movie is about a freshly turned vampire who got turned into a vampire from a one-night stand. And after she gets turned, she decides she does not want to kill people anymore until she meets the lovely Allison. Oh yeah. So this movie is an LGBTQ disaster film. This was probably one of the worst films I have watched in a while. And I've watched this movie like, a couple of months ago. Besides having the cat lady, show her titties in this movie, which they look really nice, by the way. I gotta say, this movie was really just god awful. Why did I watch this? Well, for one, it was a sexy horror film, by the way. And, for most of us, we like to watch horror for what? The titties. The ass and titties. Alright, I'm going to sound like a big pig on this one, but I mean, I can't lie about why I watched this film. Now, honestly, I knew the film was going to be a disaster. What made this movie terrible? Terrible story. Terrible plot. She's a vampire. Like, why is she a vampire trying to get over killing people? I get it. They want to go Twilight with this shit, but it came off as really corny and after school. Like a real like back in the days when we used to see those after school, like I'm a Bill type cartoons. Like that's how he came off as. It was terrible. Teresa, definitely the worst character I have like ever endured in a film. Was just like mind numbing, like, would this bitch shut up already? But yeah, I was over her shit about like killing people, and then she was falling in love with Allison, who has killed numerous of people and didn't really care about it. It was dumb. Terrible story, terrible plot, terrible acting. These people just did not know how to make it believable to me. I sat and was just like, is this supposed to be it? I mean, the cat lady from Terrifier, she had more of a believability than all the rest of them, but even her was like, you know, when she started off sucking the blood off of Teresa, I'm just like, okay. Funny thing though, when I was looking at her, I was like, she looked very familiar. I didn't really put it all together until I was writing the outline for this shit and was like, that was the fucking lady from Terrifier that got her tits ripped off. Terrible lighting, terrible quality. I just did not like the quality of this film. I get that it was more low budget than anything else, but I didn't like the quality of this at all. It just seemed very cheap. Like they really just cheapened out on this film and just was like, well, there's lots of low budget cheap films, but it just seemed like they went cheap all around with everything. Acting, quality of the film, lighting of the film. I mean, just everything. It seemed like it went cheap and out. And maybe because they didn't have a real budget, but supposedly this movie is based off of like a TV show called 21st Century some bullshit. And I didn't watch that shit. I have it queued up on Amazon, but apparently these characters are supposed to be from that universe, but have no actual real like standing in that universe. But yeah, it's supposed to be more like, I guess like True Blood or some shit like that. I don't know. The only thing I cared about was the nudity and sex. So next, coming in at number 30, you guys, is The Haunting of Sharon Tate. And if you guys been listening to me for a while, you guys should already know I hated this film with the utmost passion. Now, I thought this movie was the most terrible one until I met Teresa and Allison. But yeah, this movie is still a big hunk of shit. Maybe not as bad as Teresa and Allison as far as like with the acting, but even though the acting is terrible, the performances are just god awful also, especially with Hilary Duff, which I mentioned before, just felt like Lizzie McGuire in a horror movie. But the plot was definitely very bad, and the direction of this plot was very bad also. I like the idea that they're playing on the premonitions of Sharon Tate when she had that vision about her and her friends dying like some time ago, but I feel like they overplayed it a little too much, and they played it almost like some kind of fucking Twilight Zone episode or a Rick and Morty episode where it's like alternate universe and all that. And it just felt like they really did lose direction on what they were trying to produce with this film. Another thing that I didn't really like was that just even with all this premonitions going on, there was not enough Charlie Manson. I mean, he was more of a ghost than anything, and I get that it was supposed to be that way on purpose because they call it The Haunting of Sharon Tate. And I get it. I mean, it's supposed to feel more ghost-like than anything in that he's supposed to be haunting her. But at the same time, it's like we only get one time where we see Charlie Manson, and when we see him, it's not really a clear figure or anything like that, and it's not really much of a mainstay that we really get to see this guy. I don't know what they were trying to do. So yeah, let's move on. Coming in at number 29 is Velvet Buzzsaw with Jake Gyllenhaal and a cast of art-filled enthusiast. And what I did like about this film was definitely they did have a nice cast, but the plot was definitely terrible. I mean, just the whole story about paintings that are haunting people and causing mass death or whatever. Okay, I get it. Sort of interesting, but not that interesting in my perspective. Maybe because everything was poorly executed and it seemed more like they were focused on the drama between the characters than initially what is supposed to be happening, which are the artwork killing them. Also, what was terrible about this movie is definitely the terrible CGI and blood that was in this film. I mean, especially the one that kills, what's her name, at the end with her tattoo. And it was just like, why did that happen? I mean, first of all, actually, when I really think about it, it doesn't make sense that her tattoo killed her because, one, isn't this movie supposed to be focusing on art killing people? Why is her tattoo killing her? That doesn't make sense at all. I don't know. Moving on. Coming in at number 28 is Hagazusa, starring Alexandra Quinn. And this movie was definitely supposed to be like, I guess, the 2019 version of The Witch, kind of. But it really did fall short of what it was trying to do. It definitely has a very nice, dark, ghastly setting, which is one thing that I love. But I also love that everything was kind of turned into very disturbing events as deeper as you got into the film, between her mother dying in a very ghastly way when she was young, to her getting, I guess we're assuming that she got raped by this fat fuck and her friend who was supposed to befriend her in the village, but instead she got her raped and all that. To just like rats being like smashed barehanded by her and just all this other fucked up shit that happens later on, knowing that she's a fucking witch and all that. But the thing is about this movie that brings it to number 28 is just that it's not really that interesting. The movie gets boring. Honestly, there's no real plot to it because there's really no goal that we're really achieving in this film. It just seems like there's just a bunch of fucked up shit that's happening just for the sake of fucked up shit happening. And even with all the fucked up shit that's happening, it doesn't really leave a lasting impression at all. A little bit better than Velvet Buzzsaw, but nowhere better to be higher in my list. So moving on next, coming in at number 27 is Rattlesnake. Oh boy, and you guys know I have a lot of thoughts about Rattlesnake. First of all, fuck that movie. That movie is horrible. The only thing that I like about the movie is definitely the interesting plot idea or concept of the film. I really did think and here's my thing, it did have potential. It had potential. The idea of a mother trying to save her child after she gets bit by a rattlesnake and she gets her life spared, but in order to have her life spared, they need to exchange it for another. That's an interesting concept, honestly speaking. What was terrible was just the execution of it. Between the mother just drinking most of the time, fooling around most of the time, just beating around the bush of everything that's supposed to be happening, to where she's supposed to take somebody's life. What could have easily happened, honestly speaking, in like an hour's top of this film. But I get we're trying to fill out an hour and 20 minutes worth of time. It was terrible to me. And then at some point, we kind of lose direction of this film. Especially when it gets to the point where like she's in that whole battle with the fucking wife beater and shit that she ends up kidnapping and threatens to kill him and all that. You know, supposedly she's supposed to, well, she already lost daylight. She already lost sundown, because I believe her time for sundown was like 5:45 or some shit like that, and it was 5:45, and it was like, okay, you have not killed this guy yet, so your daughter should already be dead. But yeah, it was definitely terrible. I I would say like the characterization of the mother Katrina was terrible, but at the same time it was okay. I'm kind of neutral on that because she does eventually change her idea and stance about violence towards other people. Is it a good characterization development? No, it's not. Not at all. Acting is still terrible. I just did not really like this film at all. It is definitely the worst films, one of the worst films, but it made it high enough because it wasn't as bad as these other films were. So yeah, moving on. Coming in at number 26 is Mercy Black, starring Daniela Pineda and Janine Garofalo. And I gotta say, the only thing I really do remember about this movie, and this is a movie I really cannot remember, so I can't go in that much on it. But, I mean, the thing I could say about this film that I liked about it was just the allegory of the whole Slender Man thing. Because I guess Mercy Black is supposed to be kind of like a Slender Man kind of figure. And what they did was created a story or a movie based on the Slender Man stabbing that happened. I can't remember where, but it happened a couple of years ago where a couple of middle schoolers stabbed this one girl. And they did it because they wanted to sacrifice their classmate to satisfy Slender Man, who is this fake figure that's like part of a creepypasta that doesn't even exist. That was probably like the only thing I really cared about this film. Other than that, I didn't really care for anything else because this one was also terrible. And like I mentioned before, like it didn't really leave that much of a lasting impression on me because the story was terrible. I mean, the girl that stabbed her friend, well, it's supposed to be two girls. One of the girls that stabbed her friend, well, they both ended up in a mental institution. One ended up going back home, going back living with her mom. She stayed drugged up and hospitalized at home, so she just became a vegetable of herself, never really going out, never doing anything ever again, because I guess the whole situation was traumatic for her. And the movie that the story is following, she returns home and go home to her sister, and she's now living with society again. What happens is that now she has to deal with people who are trying to use her, people who are hating her, and the Mercy Black figure following her and trying to claim its next victim, which I believe is her sister's son. Didn't really care for this movie at all. Didn't really care for Mercy Black, the figure, at all. The movie was terrible. Moving on. Coming in at number 25 is I Trapped the Devil, the Christmas movie that I did not know it was. Oh man, this movie is starring Jocelyn Donahue, Scott Poitras, and AJ Brown. The things that I do like about this movie is that it feels very paranoid with this atmosphere and vibe. You get this like vibe of like something evil is lurking in that house. In this whole film, you get like this whole atmosphere between the music and the setting, the dark colors, the muted colors. Sometimes the very like scary bright red or purplish reds that are in this film give you just this intimidating, scary feeling that something dark is really happening to it. But that's about as far as it goes. I don't like how inconsistent the sound quality is. I really don't like the story because the story, it just seems like it's more based on like the familial drama between Steve and Matt, more than just this man trapped in the basement who is supposed to be the devil. Now, I get that their goal is to try and get the devil out, or somebody who is Steve calling the devil to try and get him out. But as far as that goes, I mean, it's not really that great. The ending is definitely, for what you could interpret it as, I mean, as artful as this movie is, which I do see it as very artful and very different from any other type of horror movie that I've watched. The ending will surely get you, because what you thought is just a man stuck in the basement turns out to be this little girl coming out. Now, we do know that the devil could take many forms, so maybe this person is the devil. Maybe the appearance that he wants to take is an appearance that is very, I don't know, I feel like he wants to take an appearance that is more sweet, delightful, innocent, but find ways to corrupt you in the end. That's just what I got from it, because I felt like just like we're treated to where this guy is talking all the time, then all of a sudden at the end we just see this little girl come out, and it's just like, what the hell? Weren't you just a man just a minute ago? But yeah, I'm just taking it as like maybe this movie has a interpretation on why that happened. But other than that, that's number 25 on my list. Coming in at number 24 is Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Vile and Evil, or Evil and Vile, however that shit is worded. Just that long ass title movie. Starring Zac Efron and Lily Collins. And this movie was a great heap of shit. Oh my god. I gotta say though, nice cast. I do like the fact that they did have a nice cast in this film. But my god, this movie was terrible, riddled with bad story, bad direction, bad acting, bad dialogue, and just too much of a lighthearted movie to follow than to be a story about a serial killer who was killing hundreds of women and raping them, dead or alive, by the way. Yeah, so I don't think I need to go any further with this. I'm pretty sure a lot of us seen this trash ass movie. If you have it, you're not missing much of anything. I'd rather give you guys an alternate look at Ted Bundy's Confessions of a Killer, and that should do you justice. Coming in at number 23 is Jacob's Ladder, starring Michael Ealy. And yeah, I mean, as far as like this remake from the original goes, I do like the premise that it sticks with about veterans and trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. This movie kind of elevated more into like a habit of dealing with drugs and mental illness, also in some parts of homelessness for veterans. But honestly, that's about as far as it goes, is to trying to create a premise or a plot for us to kind of like, but it falls flat on the whole execution and story and direction. We don't know what the hell we are watching. And maybe that's the same we could say for the first Jacob's Ladder, which is also kind of like its own mystical mind fuck of like events that happen. But at least we could follow it and realize at the end that that guy was actually dead. This movie, we just don't know what we're doing. It seems like we're in this whole little Pan's Labyrinth world of like just different things happening, like it's like the fucking butterfly effect or something like that, which it actually does come off as. The pacing is it's fast, but it's sloppy in every way possible, because we jump from Jacob being in war, then he's a doctor, and then all of a sudden like he gets met up by this other veteran. This veteran tells him about some shit about how other veterans are on drugs. His brother Isaac is supposedly alive, who is actually pronounced as dead, which is like, okay, his brother is alive. He ends up fighting his brother. It just turns into this whole whirlwind of like events that happen so fast. It's like almost like in a dream state world till we're finally in the real world, where Jacob is actually the brother who is the one that went down on his luck, lost the girl that he was dating and idolized, and was pretty much stolen by his brother. His brother ends up marrying that girl that he was with first. He's the one that ended up getting shot and almost died, but ended up surviving. And yeah, he ended up getting hooked on drugs because he could not handle the trauma or the stress. Now, you would think, like, with everything I just said, that would make it a very good movie, but it was not a good movie at all. And I just did not really like this film on how it was just poorly executed, because I felt like it could have really been a really good remake. If you guys ever decide to watch Jacob's Ladder, don't bother. Moving on. Coming in at number 22 is Soul to Keep, starring Kate Rose Reynolds and Aurora Heimbeck. And in this film, you get the story about these group of friends who conjure up this spirit. And oh my god, does this movie take you to a world of what the fucks is going on. I just don't really care that it did not have a lasting feeling on me as far as like it should. It wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination at all. It just doesn't have that lasting effect to where you're like, oh yeah, Soul to Keep, I remember that film. Because honestly, for me, I don't feel like it gave me that lasting feeling or that rewatch value that I needed. But it was definitely a decent film to watch. Decent writing, decent quality of the film. Yeah, everything was just, it was nothing really spectacular about this. And right now I just feel like I'm talking out my ass. But moving on. Coming in at number 21 is The Perfection. And if you guys heard my rant before about this movie, you guys already know how much I didn't really care for this film. As far as like plot and story goes, it was only just fairly decent at best. You know, a story about a woman starring Allison Williams, who was in Get Out, by the way, comes back to like the school that she has learned her whole life on how to play music and helped her become like a music star, what have you, this, that, and the other. She is taking on the young protege, Lizzie, who is played by Logan Brownie, who is also another one of my WCWs. They go on this whole little quest together, you know, end up finding love together. We end up having a great love-making scene with both of them together, and see the nice ass on Logan Brownie, by the way. Ooh. But other than that, we get to the point where like they're on their trip. Lizzie is tripping out. She ends up chopping off her arm, and everything that follows is just one plot twist after the next. Now, the one thing I could say is what's good about it is definitely the plot twist, because the plot twists are definitely out of nowhere. And as we get deeper into the film, we start learning why Charlotte, who is played by Allison Williams, why she was even trying to befriend Lizzie in the first place. And it's because she wanted her to get out of that school and out of the shadow of Anton, who's played by Steven Weber, who definitely makes a very manipulative villain very good in this film. Yeah, like I said before, it's average story, average plot, but after you watch this movie once, the rewatch value, it drops significantly. Can't really say I hate it that much, but yeah, this is definitely not a movie that shouldn't have been hyped the way it was. But moving on, coming in at number 20 is Detectives, starring Chris Green and Tina Ilaviv. I don't know how to say this bitch's last name. But anyway, yeah, the horror comedy movie where a bunch of friends go into Mexico to catch real ghosts. Or at least they didn't think they were going to see real ghosts. But they end up seeing some real ghosts, and shit gets fucking wild. Now, I gotta admit, I really did like this movie. Actually, it was more of a decent movie than I thought. Average storyline and plot, but they do it in the most likable sense. The characters were pretty cool also. I mean, it was like, you couldn't really hate the characters and what they were doing. I mean, maybe you start hating Chris Green's character because of him always trying to put his viral and rating sensation over everything else, over his credibility. But at the same time, you just couldn't help but like, just like hope that he wins in this film. At least for me, I did. The only thing bad about the movie was definitely it was predictable. I mean, it's a comedy movie. Of course, it's going to be predictable. I mean, it was going to have a predictable ending where the guys win. They weren't going to be like in Apocalypse, who actually took a very different route as far as predictability, you know. I mean, I guess that's why I really do like In the Apocalypse. I mean, it's a musical comedy where the ending is not what you expect it to be. Whereas this movie, it's a little bit more predictable, but it's okay. I mean, it turns out to be a sweet ending where, like, even though their friend ends up dying in the middle of the film, he ends up being a ghost that ends up being on their team as they are relaunching their Ghost Hunter series, and they're starting to hunt real ghosts instead of fake ghosts after Chris Green's character learns that one of his friends could actually see and hear real ghosts with the machines that they actually concocted and thought they were just stage props. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely an interesting film. The ghosts were pretty cool also. Yeah, I mean, there's not much bad I could say about this movie. Would it be higher than any of these other movies? Probably not. But this is definitely a film you guys should check out. Alright, moving next to the next three, which is 19, 18, and 17. Coming in at 19 is Haunt. 18, Nightmare Cinema. 17 is Escape Room. Now, Haunt, I don't have much to say about that film. I mean, it's just your another basic slasher film. A group of friends are going into this escape room or haunted maze and what have you, and what they end up enduring is just a night of being hacked off one by one. Very gory, decent plot, not really anything great, which is why it lands at 19. More so for its gore than anything else. People are getting killed in the most vicious way possible. That's about it. Nightmare Cinema only comes in 18 because it was definitely, it had various stories that were very decent. Especially the one with the fucking, I think it was the woman that was like being possessed, or she's dealing with like people that are being possessed. And that shit was so fucking crazy. That was insane. Then it was the young boy who was in the hospital. He is seeing the ghost of his parents, or actually his mom, and she is trying to get him to go and die also, which I think he eventually does die in the end. But all the while in this hospital, as he survived his injuries of getting shot by this robber who robbed his parents, kind of very Batman-esque, by the way. He survives the injuries, but in the hospital, the robber finds him in the hospital, and it's just turned into a cat and mouse situation where the boy is trying to get away from this killer, who is trying to finish the job, by the way. Which, by the way, to me, I'm just like, how the fuck did this guy not get arrested? How the fuck did this guy just even walk through the hospital and just try and find this kid? How does he even know the kid's name and all that? It's still baffling to me. The only thing that I didn't like about Nightmare Cinema also, well, one thing that I didn't like about it, not also, but one thing I didn't like about it was the story about how this boyfriend was with his girl. She's trying to get plastic surgery. She starts off with trying to just get a small plastic surgery for her face, I believe. Just a little, trim here and there. Then her boyfriend decides he wants to make his girlfriend look like his mom. And the way his mom got her surgery, she looks like all those plastic surgeries of bitches that just go so fucking wrong. It's insane. Like, lips just too over collagen, breasts too fucking large and unreal. Face is kind of, giving more cheeks and all that, and it just looked like a really disaster look for that woman, and it was just like, who the fuck really wants this? It's disgusting. Oh man, but yeah, that lands my 18th spot. Coming in at 17, like I mentioned, Escape Room, and I had to actually buy this film. on DVD when I went to Amoeba one time. I'm pretty sure you guys have been watching my bargain bin collection. Actually, I don't think I put it in my bargain bin collection. I don't believe. But if I have, I mean, you guys know I got it. But, yeah, with this movie, it only comes in 17 because just for the simple fact, they're franchising the film. And yeah, I know there's an Escape Room 2 coming out. Yes, I am very interested in seeing it. Escape Room 1 didn't really give me much of a story to follow. It was just average at best. The plot of the story about this group of people, random people by the way, trying to escape this escape room, not to sound very cliche or anything like that, but this warehouse full of like traps and deadly mazes. They're trying to escape from it. The thing that I do like mostly were the rooms, especially the upside down billiards room, the frozen forest area. That was a pretty fucked up room to be in also. I'm trying to remember the other one, the one in the beginning, the one where like the room was kind of like crushing the guy in. That was a fucked up room to be in. The other one was like the gas chamber room, or it wasn't even much of a chamber. It was a hospital room that gave out poisonous gas if like the time ran out or some shit like that. And it was definitely one room that was very vicious that I liked, for the simple fact that also the people who were running the maze had all the information on these characters. That was pretty crazy within itself. But I guess when Escape Room 2 comes out in 2020, we could kind of get more of a feel about who are these people that are trapping these contestants in the room. And the two characters that survive, they don't even know that they're being actually put in the next round of the escape room, as they're trying to figure out who are these people that are doing this fucked up shit to us. But anyway, moving on. Coming in at number 16 is The Hole in the Ground, starring Sienna Kerslake and James Quinn Markey, who are the mother and son duo, Sarah and Chris. And Sarah believes that her son is not really the same anymore. Like, that son is an imposter. And she gets that idea for, I guess, mother intuition. I mean, the kid is not doing things like how he used to anymore. Especially when they make these dopey faces together. Now, the thing is about this movie, I kind of like the dynamic about it, like between the mother and son. Like, when you get that mother and son dynamic in the beginning of this movie, you feel like this is what Babadook should have been. Babadook was just pure shit to me. I mean, that kid was just a fucking stress. I mean, I wanted to kill that kid myself. But, yeah, this movie was definitely what a mother and son dynamic should be, obviously. The thing that I just did not like about this film was definitely this film is also kind of forgettable. There's nothing significant that really sticks out. The plot of the movie is okay. And the direction of it just, I mean, you kind of feel like you want to believe Sarah at first when she says that her son is not her son. She even tells her son in his face, like, you're not my son. And the kid starts low-key crying and shit like that. It was so fucked up. But yeah, you're just going through the motions in this film, like, where you're trying to see, why is Sarah not believing that her son is her son anymore? How does she know that her son is an imposter? But you find out that her son is an imposter when she starts going towards, well, fighting that kid, and that kid starts beating the shit out of her ass. God damn. And then she brutalized that little fucker with a baseball bat. Like, god damn, it then locks his ass up in the fucking house. And man, that kid, that imposter was scary as a motherfucker. And sure enough, I mean, she journeys into the woods, into the hole in the ground, to kind of find her son, where she does find him. But while fighting him, she has to battle these other underlings that are in the ground and shit like that. And I mean, yeah, like I said, it's not really that. It's a good film. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's just not great. It's not anything significant that really sticks out too much to me, in my opinion. It's definitely a good film because you do get like a good, nice little mother-son dynamic going on as far as their relationship, and you get a couple of funny moments, like I mentioned, with the kid beating the shit out of his mom, which I'm pretty sure every kid probably at once wanted to do to their parents when they got on their damn nerves. But moving on. Oh man, I think after saying that, I'm pretty sure some people are like, what the fuck? You talking about beating your parents' ass? You want to fight your mom? I'm like, no, motherfucker, not necessarily. You get that idea in your head, not really like wanting to beat her up. Come on now. I think those kids are fucking evil, by the way. You know, like the Catch Me Outside girl. Oh man. But moving on to number 15. Coming in at 15 is Amy, and this is definitely what the movie Bedevil should have been. Amy follows Debs Howard as the character whose mother has died, and she finds a cell phone, and it has like this app called Amy, and what ends up happening is that she changes the voice of the character on the phone, and the character sounds just like her mother. So what ends up happening is that she ends up falling, I don't want to say in love, but she starts becoming more and more dependent on the Amy telling her what to do and treating the Amy as if her mother still exists. Now, Deb's character, Casey, ends up like using this phone to commit murders. She ends up killing one of her friends who was fucking her boyfriend. She ends up injuring her boyfriend and attempts to kill him. She ends up killing her dad, who was going to snitch on her to the police about all the things that she's doing. I mean, he wanted to hopefully get her to get committed into a mental institution, which honestly she should have been at the end of this film once I talk about this. Yeah, she just really goes on this crazy murder spree, honestly speaking. And for me, I really felt like this movie really was the embodiment of, like I mentioned before, of what Bedevil should have been when they were trying to make that allegory for like people being addicted to their phones and the phones just knowing everything about us and us being addicted to the phones and the effects it has on our minds. I really think this is what it should have been. The plot is definitely very consistent at the end of this film, which really turns into a crazy fucking sideshow, but which was also definitely the best part was that Casey, you know, she ends up finding her boyfriend Liam, and Liam, he's already injured from Casey, but he doesn't know that he got injured from Casey at first. Liam is injured by Casey. He can't even walk on his foot. He can't even really play football anymore. So Casey, she tries to take care of him. She gives him a phone also, which also has an Amy on it. And this Amy was connected to her Amy, so she could kind of get info on him. He didn't like what was going on with the Amy. He didn't like the Amy's voice because it was the voice of her mother. But I'm pretty sure he didn't know it was her mother. I don't believe so. So he changed the Amy's voice into more of a coach that kind of tells him what to do. And it really got him pumped. And it was funny because, like, she tries killing Liam, but what ends up happening is that Liam ends up kicking her ass instead. But then what happens is that the police sees what happens and kills Liam instead. My God. So Casey, she is walking around. She's injured. She's playing it off like, oh my God, he tried to murder me, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Like, she plays victim. She plays victim, and sure enough, she goes home to an empty house where she is living with her cell phones, 3 cell phones. One that's her mom, one that is her dad, and the other that is her boyfriend. It's fucking insane. This is what I was talking about. This is why Bedevil was trash. It was nothing like this film. This film really did take the idea of people being addicted to their cell phones into another fucking level. And I like this movie for it, and this is why it lands on my 15th spot. Coming in at number 14, this is for Tupac. Child's Play, starring Mark Hamill, Gabriel Bateman, Aubrey Plaza, and Brian Tyree Henry. Yes, the Child's Play remake did make it to the 14th spot. Like I mentioned before, if you guys been listening to me, I really did like this movie. I really thought this remake was not that bad. I know a lot of people hated it, but most people that hated this movie actually did not see this movie. And I think mainly because everybody is so addicted or clenching onto the nostalgia of the original movie, they cannot bear to actually sit down and watch this film and watch it just for completely for what it is. It's not a movie trying to be like the original, not at all. And that's what I really do like about this film. We have this new Chucky, who is a modernized doll, who is definitely an allegory for our technology and how it's so connected to everything nowadays. And oh my god, it's like crazy that this evil corporation, Caslon, is even making so many products to where it could connect to almost anything. Like, it's fucking crazy. But yeah, this movie was definitely really good. It was a decent plot and concept about like just this Chucky doll who is definitely Bluetooth operated, and he could connect to almost anything around the house. You could do anything with him. He could cook with you, learn languages with you. He could smile, laugh, sing, all this and the other. And I gotta admit, the singing part did throw me for a loop a bit. That's probably one thing I did not like about this Chucky doll, is the fucking singing. It's like, why are you singing? But it was kind of cute and funny also. I mean, it was like, wow. Was not expecting Chucky to sing. I could have sworn I was watching a horror film. This film definitely does dive into the horror aspects. It's definitely very gory, but it's also definitely very creative with its kills, just for the simple fact that they were barred from kills that they wanted to do in this film but couldn't because of copyright issues, which is so weird that to hear, because killing is being copywritten. Who knew? But yeah, I guess because of the franchise and what have you, they couldn't really do certain kills because the other Chucky movies have done kills just like that one. So the movie had to really get really creative with what type of kills they were doing in the film, which is why we get the lawnmower death scene. Hence why we get a cat getting killed. Hence why, someone's mom gets killed in a self-driving car and all that. And it's just end up in a car accident. Another thing that I really do like in this film is definitely the dynamics between the characters. You get to see like the relationship between Andy and Karen and how good their dynamic is. Besides Karen's boyfriend, who's a huge douche that Andy doesn't like. You get to see the dynamic between Andy and Mike, which is also another good relationship that we see in the film. You get to see the dynamic in the fun relationship between Andy and Chucky before Chucky goes all Texas Chainsaw Massacre on everyone else, by the way. Things that I didn't like about this film is just it did delve into too much comedy, like I mentioned before, Chucky singing and all that. The "this is for Tupac" comment was definitely kind of corny also. I mean, I get it. They were setting that up earlier in the film with one of the kids, but it's like, come on, out of all rappers, we gotta say Tupac. But alright. I guess that's one rapper everybody knows. Um, Another thing is that not so many deaths in this film. You don't get that many death scenes per se. I mean, not counting the toy store where Chucky goes all psycho crazy and have all the toys attacking people like Total Toy Story and all that shit. Yeah, it wasn't that many deaths by my count. I mean, I think the 3 deaths that I mentioned, I think those were the total deaths if I could remember, because I don't remember that many deaths being in the movie. Also, another thing is a sequel. Could there be possibly another sequel? It seemed like they're hinting towards a sequel. I'm not for it, by the way. As much as I like this film, I'm not for another movie of this magnitude. I think it was good how they kept it. Keep it at the first one. The death seems definite for Chucky. Let's just leave it as that and let's move on afterwards. Oh my god, like right now, I'm sitting here on Twitter and I'm looking at Kylie Jenner posting up some thirst trap pictures up. Oh my god, dude. I'm tripping right now. While I'm sitting here trying to do this countdown for you guys. Coming in at number 13 is another LGBTQ, but this one is a delight. As I am like shifting my eyes. Knife Plus Heart. And I believe I talked about this film before. This film is starring Vanessa Paredes and Kate Morin. Knife Plus Heart. There's a killer running loose on a homoerotic set. Well, not a set, but a killer is picking off all the actors and actresses that are participating in this homoerotic movie. And while all of this is happening, the main character which is played by Vanessa Paredes, she is actually parodying each murder in her movie in hopes to kind of flesh out this killer or solve whoever this killer is. Now, the plot of this movie is very good. As far as like just this whole who is this killer nonsense. And the story is very decent. I am, for one, not really obsessed with the character, and I think that character is what made me more upset than anything else in this film besides being uncomfortable from the homoerotic scenes. She was like this character, again, using the murders that were happening in her films and trying to make it seem very creative. It wasn't really creative at all. It just came off as just weird and sloppy. While she's also trying to regain her love with this woman named Lois, who is played by Kate Morin. And while Kate Morin is kind of just avoiding her at all means impossible, Lois kind of almost stumbles onto who is possibly the killer. Now, she ends up dying in the film and is pretty much broken up by it, but eventually we do find out that this killer ends up being this guy who was in a film with one of the porn stars who was killed in the beginning of this film, which also was a very uncomfortable scene, by the way, for me. I don't know why I keep mentioning like, oh my god, uncomfortable, but I still say that this movie was good. It's so ironic, but it's funny because as uncomfortable it still was a very good film. I mean, it's like diving into a world you don't normally live in. And it's always, I mean, not to say that this is necessarily what happens in that community, in its world, but it was just more of like an interest on seeing like the kind of issues that they would deal with, like these characters. Because we had everything in there. I mean, between gays and lesbians, transgenders, drag queens, cross-dressers, they were all in this film. And just to see them all kind of collide with their worlds, with their issues and thoughts and ideas, and that the killer ended up being like this closet homosexual guy who was in a film, who got outed from a film being in, I guess unknowingly, possibly. I can't remember which one it was, but because of that film, and because he wasn't really out there displaying his sexuality, he ended up going on a murderous rampage and started killing everybody that was homosexual. And yeah, he just did that. The thing that I didn't like about this film was definitely that this killer was not really established enough in this movie. It just seemed more like he came out of nowhere, and that they just did this whole exposition about this guy after they pretty much killed him in the end of the film. They just talked about who he was and why he was doing these things and what his story was. It would have been better to me if they actually did establish this guy's character early on in the film. I mean, if they established this guy's character early on in the film, it would have been a very good slasher. What was also good about this film is that it is shot in a very 80s aesthetic look and feel. So you get like the feel of like Dario Argento and other Italian artists who produce horror films. And that's another thing why I like this film. It's just how it looks and it feels. And it felt like you could see this movie in like Suspiria or whatever type of other films, opera. What's that other movie that was trash? I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it just had that look that was also good about this film, which is why it's sitting here in my number 13 spot. Coming in at number 12 is Assimilate, the Invasion of the Body Snatchers film starring Joe Courtney, Colin Worthy, Andy Madi. Yeah, I can't pronounce her last name. I swear, this is going to be the official podcast of brutalizing everyone's name or last name. Whatever the fuck. Change that shit. No, I'm kidding. But yeah. This movie was surprisingly good to me. I didn't think this movie was going to be good at all. I really thought this movie was going to be trash. This movie actually had a really good plot, which was definitely, like I mentioned before, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but in a very different way, because in this Invasion of the Body Snatchers movie, in most of those movies, they're holding on to the humans. This movie, they're killing the humans. They're basically copying, taking memories from the humans and killing them after them. Like they're just garbage and useless. I actually thought that was very brutal. I actually thought with them doing this, this was definitely a step above to what usually happens in those Invasion of the Body Snatcher movies. Throughout the film, the development of the characters and all that between like Zach, Randy, and Kayla, you know, seeing Randy go from like the shadow wild guy of Zach, who just lives under his parents and wants to help his parents only. You know, Randy ends up becoming sacrificial and trying to help his friends out, escape the zombies. Not the zombies, I'm sorry, the pod people. And Zach ends up becoming brave and wants to do things and take things in his own actions and telling Kayla like how he feels about her and trying to save his little podunk town, as he would call it in the movie, that he did not really care about, but instead wants to save it. What was definitely some negatives on this was definitely some parts of the stories is that where did these fucking pod people come from? Now, I know they're like little particles that we see throughout the film, and they kind of represent those aliens. I mean, I still don't get whether they were supposed to be airborne, were they supposed to be like, because they do get like these little rat like creatures that ends up stabbing the characters, which is pretty much still in their DNA. But then after that, I guess they're in like this whole cocoon phase where they eventually come out naked, by the way. And my God, did Kayla look like, ooh, woo. Nah, how about that Mrs. Brissett, though? I wanted to see her come out that pod. Now, that's what I'm talking about. But, let me stop. I'm just saying, though, that Mrs. Brissett, though. I know I'm going on a tangent, but that Mrs. Brissett, though, I'm just saying. You know, I want some of her cookies. And I ain't talking about the homemade kind. Nah. But, let me stop. I know this is now becoming very cringy to listen to, but yeah, just like, where the fuck did these creatures come from? I know they're copying everyone's DNA. They cocoon themselves like up a little bit. Then they come out naked, and yeah, they pretty much need to take that person's memories away from them by holding on or rubbing their head, which is actually crazy, though, that you don't want these people touching you, because as soon as they touch your head, they pretty much have your memories just like that. Another thing that was bad to me was when Kayla's little brother, Joey, she told him after she helped him escape to go to the cabin that her family used to go to. And to me, I'm like, he's a kid. I mean, the kid looked like he's only like 8, 9, 10 years old. How the fuck is he supposed to figure out where to go? I don't think he's able to walk home by himself like that. You know? I know I wasn't walking home when I was 10 years old. But, yeah, eventually, like, yeah, the kid found his way there, and sure enough, Kayla and Randy were there. But the thing is, with this movie, that I really do like, as we're coming back to things that I like about this film, is that this movie is very unorthodox at the end. Now, what they thought, Zach and Kayla, with these pod people invading, they thought they were just invading their podunk town first. But in reality, their town was really the last. These aliens already invaded all the main cities and countries in the world. And what we see at the end, at the credits, from their upload about what was going on, you saw that they got a response from other people. So it looks like there's a possible sequel about to happen with this movie. Now, this movie, I wouldn't mind a sequel. Now, all the other films, I'm like, why are we getting a sequel? I think the first movie is okay how it is. This one definitely looks like it is going to be a decent sequel, if there is one. I wouldn't mind. I would actually welcome it. But yeah, this movie does come in at a steady 12 for me, just because of all the things that I mentioned. Coming in at number 11 is The Furies. And my God, this movie was definitely crazy beyond slashers I have ever seen since Terrifier. Yep. This movie is starring Airlie Dodds, Linda Neo, and Ebony Vagulons. I don't even know how to fucking pronounce that bitch's name. I need to stop. But this movie was definitely like very worth the watch. This is why it's in my 11th spot. Definitely good plot and development about what's going on in the film. Basically, the story is dealing with, after Kayla and Maddie get kidnapped, they are placed into a game where it is all life and death. Now, what's happening with them is that they are being hunted down by these insane killers that they call the Beast, and they are beauties. The thing is, with these beauties, they have a beast to protect them, and if your beauty is killed, your beast is dead. It's crazy. It's crazy. This movie is all about the last person standing, the last girl standing in the film. The thing that I like also about this film is definitely the gore and violence. I mean, between fucking Sheena, who is trying to talk shit to Kayla, who is a character who has a very interesting handicap in this film, which makes this movie a little bit interesting. But Sheena gets her fucking self cut in half, almost reverse Terrifier style. Except she's not hanging upside down naked. Yeah, she gets killed reverse Terrifier style, and it looks fucking brutal. The fucking little bitch, Rose. Oh my god, I couldn't stand that bitch. As much as I couldn't stand Kayla, who was really just way too obsessed with her friend Maddie, and way too dependent also. Which I kept going in my head, like, why are you so obsessed with this chick? Like, do you have a thing for her, or is she just your friend? It just seemed like she really just was like way too obsessed with her friend, more than what is healthy usual, in my opinion. But I don't know, maybe because I'm a guy and guys treat each other differently than girls. But the little bitch Rose, now she was a freaky little one. Like, this one was just unloyal as possible. First she's telling Kayla like, hey, we're friends now, right? Then some shit happens and she's like, oh, it was that bitch. Like, what kind of loyalty is that? I thought we was friends. Like, you snitching already? Like, damn. Definitely a good development, definitely good gore. And like I mentioned before, a very good handicap in this film, which I found very interesting, was for the fact that Kayla was epileptic and she ends up having seizures. Now, during her seizures, she ends up blacking out and she ends up having visions, not hallucinations, but visions of like either her beast roaming around in the fucking maze, or like in a little killing floor, or visions of Maddie being scared and being protected and hidden. I thought this was a very good out of the box kind of handicap, because it made the character a little bit more interesting, because she ends up having blackouts at the worst possible moments. It's like she ends up having a blackout while some of these killers are right there, not too far from her, like just like making her easy pickings right then and there. But she ends up not dying. And what ends up happening at the end, which is what I also like, is just how her development of being really dependent on Maddie to make decisions for her. She ends up learning how to be courageous for herself, but still, she's kind of still being dependent on Maddie, but she's making decisions on a Maddie that doesn't exist anymore, because she is definitely still kind of traumatized from the events from being stuck in that killing world. But now she's killing off the people who created this game. Now, I don't know if the Furies is trying to make a sequel to it, because the way it was kind of open-ended at the end, it seemed like it could definitely run as a sequel to kind of like see who is at the top creating these games and causing these women to be stuck in this world where they're getting picked off one by one. You know? But who knows? I mean, definitely this was one movie that was worth watching, which is why it lands on my number 11 spot. Alright, you guys, so we are now closing into the top 10 area. So coming in at top 10, well, number 10, I should say, is Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror. And this movie is starring Jordan Peele, Tony Todd, Rachel True, Loretta Devine, Miguel Nunez, and just a bunch of other black actors, directors, writers, and educators. And this film is definitely really good. I mean, it highlights the high points and low points of black people in cinema. You know, you get to start off hearing about the story about blacks and their portrayal in Birth of a Nation, like films like that, basically minstrel shows and racist films just like that, to now black starring roles in like movies like Candyman, Get Out, and just various other films. And they do talk about things like the black sidekick, the sacrificial lamb, just stuff that is very, it was seen normal in horror and was always kind of perpetrated as like something that should be in a film, to now just like getting away from those negative stereotypes and building ethnic characters up as more heroes than villains. Coming in at number 9 is a movie all about telling lies. The movie Eli, starring Charlie Shotwell, Judy Greer's hot doppelganger Kelly Riley, and Max Martini and Lily Taylor. And in this movie, I really do feel like at first I did not like this film, especially when I first watched it, because I thought it was going to be really terrible. That was my idea. I thought it was going to be really terrible when it first started out. This movie started off really like just dull, boring. I mean, it was like watching a horror movie of Bubble Boy, basically. But then everything kind of changed as we're getting deeper into the film. And then we start learning a little bit more about Eli and all these visions that he is seeing. So then we start learning that these ghosts that he's seeing after he's taken this experimental operation from said Dr. Horn, played by Lily Taylor, we learned that these ghosts aren't trying to hurt him. They are trying to help him and help him get out of this house. Why? Because Eli is definitely the son of the devil. That shit was fucking bonkers, by the way. I lost my head. First time watching. Very good plot twist. Very like, not really seen coming. Development, alright, it's okay. It was getting there. I mean, you saw the development between, like, it started at first, you saw the parents together. You thought they were going to be together by the end. As we got deeper into the film and we saw that everyone's kind of telling lies to each other. And this is what this movie is about. It's lies built on more lies, built on more lies. It was interesting because each time a lie was being told about some type of direction or process that they were going to do, it starts to unravel and you see the truth behind everything, including the big word that, well, the big bomb, I should say, that Eli is actually the son of the devil, and that Rose, who is played by Kelly Riley, is telling Eli, well, the devil always lies. The devil always lies. And I really do like this concept that they took. The only thing I just didn't really like were the cheesy jump scares and just this whole Eli and his family type. I didn't like any of that shit. One underrated film on Netflix that I was not expecting to like at all. Yeah. So that's why Eli is at my number 9 spot. Coming in at number 8 is It Chapter 2. And I know a lot of people might hate this ranking of this movie because a lot of people hated this movie. But I actually thought it wasn't that bad at all. I really did like The Losers Club All Grown Up with Jessica Chastain. Bill Hader, as I mentioned, he was very funny. James McAvoy playing Bill Denbrough. Isaiah Mustafa, who played Mike Hanlon. Oh my god, I am so fucking up people's names today. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, but not only do they bring in the adults, they do bring back the kids like Will. I want to say Will Harfer, but I know I'm fucking his name up. Finn Wolfhard, I knew I was fucking his name up. And Sophia Lilas, who plays the young Beverly Marsh. And as well as we get also Bill Skarsgård back playing Pennywise. Few positives also that I like was definitely there was lots of blood. Not that many deaths, which I wish there were, like a little bit more deaths. I mean, we do get to see Pennywise kind of trick a little girl to coming to the benches in a very creepy manner. Which, by the way, in this movie, he's a little bit more creepier than usual. And just to see him bite the shit out of that little girl was fucking hilarious in so many ways. What's also good about this movie is definitely the Stephen King cameo, where Stephen King talks about Bill, who is obviously supposed to be a parody of himself, talk about how his books are good, but his endings stink. That part was very funny in the film. I actually thought that was hilarious. Things that were bad. Too goddamn long. Almost 3 motherfucking hours. Too damn long. Also, another thing that was horrible about this film was definitely the ending. Like, I'm still not feeling the ending at all. As far as like how they defeat Pennywise, I feel like that was just the worst thing possible. I mean, in the first film, they beat the living shit out of the clown in his monster insect form and just kicked the dead lights that he has. But in this damn film, these motherfuckers talking about, well, we're not scared of you because you're a clown, and this makes this motherfucker small? I mean, I guess. I mean, if that's what's going to defeat Pennywise, sure. Whatever. We needed some way to defeat him. Tell this motherfucker he's a clown and make him small. That's how we defeat him. But other than that, I still like the visual effects. Like I said, I still like Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. Overall good. Not the best film, but definitely does land on my top 8 as far as films go. Coming in the number 7 spot, Tigers Are Not Afraid, starring Paola Lara, Juan Ramon Lopez. Yes, Issa Lopez's film, which is very, I gotta say, Guillermo del Toro-esque, by the way. Was a very interesting film. The story follows a kids who live in Mexico, and they are taking on the cartel to kind of bring it into them in a way. Their leader Shine is basically helping Estrella kind of find her mother and kind of bring her into some kind of, I guess, closure that her mother is possibly dead. Because the thing about this story that I like is that it deals with a real life setting that is going on today in Mexico. There are definitely areas that are being overrun by the cartel, and they are taking kids, mothers, dads, whoever, for like human trafficking, drugs, people smuggling, and just like anything they can, in these different types of crimes that they're doing. And in this movie, I mean, it doesn't sugarcoat the world that they're living in, where like we have these kids who are just kids, and we're expecting them to just be kids. And that's another thing that I like about this film, is the dynamic of how these kids, they just want to be kids and have fun, but they're in this world where they're forced to grow up. And it's real sad in a way, because they have to deal with like all this violence and just all these drugs going around them. Just seeing the relationship between these kids, like how they kind of start off rocky between Shine and Estrella. They eventually start kind of like coming together as one and start working together. And even though she still kind of has that child mentality mind of believing in fairy tales, whereas Shine is kind of like, even though he's younger than her, he lost that fairy tale love a long time ago, ever since his mother got killed. Things that I kind of don't like about this film is definitely the pacing can be kind of slow at times. They do kind of like do scenes where like the kids are having more of a playful moment and just being kids. It could seem like a big waste of time kind of for the movie, but at the same time, it's not anything too big that's like a big negative. But it could be something that you just really don't care about. But it was enough to land itself on the number 7 spot for me. It definitely has some rewatch value. If you're a fan of like movies like Guillermo del Toro's like The Orphan or Pan's Labyrinth, this is definitely a movie to watch because I really do like those films. And this film was no short of like what those films are like, blending like the harsh realities with fantasy. And you do get like nice little visual effects of like a chalk tiger when they're telling a story about a tiger and how it had to defend itself and fight for its own. You get a nice little visual effects when like they're in the little drug house and they're following like this little tiger to try and escape El Chino, who is supposed to be like this whole drug lord, and he ends up being like some kind of politician that is just very corrupt, and he's just pretty much killing everybody and what have you. And we get to see his brutal side when like you see a video of him actually killing Australia's mother in a very brutal way possible. But yeah, this movie is definitely worth the watch. I know I'm going on and on about it, but yeah, this is definitely on my number 7 spot of 2019 movies to watch. Yeah, so moving on. Coming in at number 6 is Lupita Nyong'o's movie Little Monsters. Haha, you guys thought I was gonna say Us, huh? Yeah. But Little Monsters come in at number 6. And like I said, starring Lupita Nyong'o. Alexander England is also starring in the film. He plays Dave, the drunk uncle who is losing his girlfriend after a vicious breakup, and she is already fucking someone else. My God, and it was funny because he took his nephew to drop in on his girl so he could propose to her. Weird. But anyway, it's a good zombie flick. It's very hilarious. Good stories, good songs, good character development, because Dave eventually becomes the man that he wants to be, and he ends up, of course, getting Miss Caroline in the end. Of course, the movie is predictable. That's a negative. But for it being a zombie flick, it's definitely very hilarious. Especially with Teddy McGiggles, who was played by Josh Gad. He is this, I guess, kids performer who on the surface is supposed to be like this great guy, but behind closed doors he's this drunken nymphomaniac who humps everybody's mothers, aunties, and grandmothers and all that. It's so funny and hilarious, but definitely one movie to check out. It was definitely good enough to land on my top 6 because of all the humor and positives that I've noticed from this movie. So yeah, that's my number 6 spot. Alright, coming in at number 5 is Hell House LLC 3 Lake of Fire. Yep, and this is the 3rd installment of the Hell House series, which, by the way, to me, I never initially thought I was going to like this series. But I started watching Hell House maybe around the time when I was doing the 31 Days of Horror. And I realized that this was a really good franchise. I mean, you don't get really good found footage movies anymore. Well, nah, let me take that back. We used to get oversaturated with found footage movies ever since Blair Witch came out and Paranormal kind of brought it back. But as quality found footage movies go, it varies. It definitely varies. I mean, between like VHS, Rec, and now this film. This has been one good franchise. This is the third installment, and honestly speaking, this is probably one of the best found footage installments that's very underrated because this movie is actually intentionally a 3 series movie. Like, they literally made this movie intentionally to be 3 series, and it wasn't even made in no cheesy type of way at all. Like, it was made very well calculated and very well made to where you could just like watch it and just feel like, okay, I could appreciate this. At least that's how I felt when I was watching it. As far as like my thoughts about this movie, it's definitely creepy as hell still, with like all the mannequins and how they move from time to time. They're creepy as hell. It definitely gets very crazy with Andrew Tully at the end. Who is played by Brian David Tracy, who has been part of the role since the beginning of the franchise. And when they bring back like the past characters from the first film and how they're kind of like giving their death that big closing and just like welcome to the afterlife kind of thing. This is where you're stuck forever, basically limbo. It's definitely really good. The plot is definitely decent. Acting, of course, is always like not that great of acting, but I mean, these aren't like big actors or actresses in these films. But other than that, I mean, it was good enough to crack my top 5. If it's probably like your first time watching Hell House at all, I mean, I could see why it probably didn't crack your top 5. But for me, it's in my top 5 just based on for the fact that I've watched the previous ones before, and just to see this closing and just to see how well-rounded this whole series was being made, I had to put it in the top 5. Alright, now rounding up the top 4 movies. These movies could actually be used interchangeably, honestly, because any of these 4 movies could have been my number 1 feature. But starting in at number 4 is Sweetheart, and there's not much negativity I could say about that. Kiersey Clemons' role as Jen was very good in the film. I mean, it's like a Castaway meets, I guess, 47 meters below, or like some kind of Jaws film. And in this film, Jen is pretty much washed away on this sea, and she's pretty much alone until she figures out that she's not alone and that there is a sea creature coming to attack her. Thing about that's really good with this movie is definitely the visual shooting. Most of the film, after Jen finds out that one of her boatmates are pretty much dead, which is Brad, she basically goes into survival mode, and we get to see her kind of like do her thing on the island, doing things to kind of help her survive, get food, pitch a camp, go through like different areas where she could kind of scavenger for like items and what have you. And she found like an old campsite where like some people were actually camping there, probably got taken out by the monster. And at the campsite was a backpack, and in that backpack was an old school Game Boy, the very first one. Yes, man. And I was like, oh snap, that is dope. So yeah, I really thought this movie was really dope as far as like the visual shooting. The look of the monster and the effects in this movie was really good also. I mean, that monster was crazy as hell. I mean, I thought the Kraken in that one movie was crazy, but this monster was crazy. I can't remember the name of that movie where they were like, release the Kraken. It's something Legends. I can't remember, but I saw that movie like a long time ago. What was also good is that the story was not even bad at all. This is a really good told movie, like story-wise. Like, you're not given endless dialogue, meaningless dialogue, or just like meaningless conversation throughout the film. You're actually given like conversation throughout the film when it's necessary. So when finally, like, Lucas, who is Jen's boyfriend, arrives in the scene with his friend Mia, they start talking about Jen and how, like, sometimes they don't really trust her judgment on things that she says, or it's how, like, some things that she says aren't really even true. And the story kind of unfolds like little intricacies of like what these characters are about and what they believe. And it's just really interesting to see that they really put more importance not only in what kind of shots they were taking for the film, but what the characters are saying. And that really was very dope to me. I mean, why number 4? I mean, like I said, it could have been number 1. I would think like maybe more 4, because these other films are a little bit more superior in what they offer. But this movie could have easily been number 1. Coming in at number 3, Ari Aster's Midsommar. And I gotta say, this movie is definitely visually stunning, which is one of the things I like about it. Florence Pugh and Jack Reiner in a very, very dysfunctional role of boyfriend and girlfriend. Like I said, visually stunning, you know, a whole nightmarish community during the day, psychedelic effects, especially when they take in drugs. Definitely psychologically disturbing and graphic as far as the violence go, which I really like, especially when that old couple jumps off the cliff for a sacrificial ending, or basically ending their life cycle, and that old guy gets fucked up by the I forgot what she, like the cult leader or some shit like that. Yeah, that movie is definitely very, very crazy. The only thing that I hate, definitely very predictable at times, especially like just knowing what was gonna happen at the end. We knew that they were gonna break up, but we didn't think like it was gonna come at the cost of Christian dying also. But yeah, another sort of a negative, but kind of like neutral in a way. The runtime. The runtime was definitely very long. Kind of comes off like to where they could have left some parts off. I know there's like a 4-hour long Midsommar movie that I want to catch, which is the director's cut. So yeah, I mean, I can't wait till that comes out. I'm waiting for that to come out on DVD. I know the actual Midsommar is actually out now, but I'm waiting for the director's cut if they're ever going to release that. So yeah, but beyond all that, this one lands my number 3 spot. Coming in at number 2, Gaspar Noé's Climax. And since we are on the topic of visually stunning and menacing movies, this movie is also visually stunning and menacing and dark in every way possible, which is one of the things that I do like about it. This movie is actually very good with all the conflict and savagery that is amplified with how each characters interact with each other. How during the phase of when they're all getting drunk and spiked from the sangria that is riddled with LSD, the film goes into this whole nightmare mode where the cameras do all types of experimental visual effects. The lighting gets very demonic and eerie, and it's just a film that just like, it was really good to see. Probably one really good sleeper also, like a film that no one really is talking about that much. I mean, yeah, it's a dance film, and the acting is really not that great because a lot of the actors are just really dancers, and they didn't really have lines per se, but they were just guided by whatever directions Gaspar Noé gave them, and they pretty much improvised their lines. The only thing that's also another negative about the film is that definitely the ending was predictable. I mean, we all kind of figure out if you were paying attention to who did what drugs or what have you. You kind of figure out who actually spiked everyone. So yeah, definitely this is my number 2 movie, which means number 1 will be that's me trying to make a drum sound, but Jordan Peele's Us, man. And I gotta say, I mean, this is probably like a controversial one. Probably not that many people will like this one, but fuck you. But I really did like this film. I really still am amazed by like what I saw by Jordan Peele's movie. I am definitely standing his films in a way. I can't wait till Candyman comes out. The thing that I like about Us is that it's definitely visually stunning. Again, like very menacing with like some of the lighting, some of the look of the characters. Very eerie, very dark in some of the areas. Also is the horror homages that it pays. It pays tribute to The Shining, especially with the deaths of the twin sisters. It pays homage to Chud, Nightmare on Elm Street, just like with the whole video collections, and it's like a couple of other movies that I can't remember. Pays homage to Michael Jackson's Thriller with the Thriller shirt. I mean, it's a lot of things that are being paid homage to that is kind of like not really looked or overlooked or underlooked, however you want to see it. Because I mean, unless you're like a really super horror fan and like a super film geek, you'll miss it. You would definitely miss it. And I do like the whole brutal violence and gore that's in this film. Also the underlying tone about the struggles between rich and poor, faith and luck, and just everything that's like that they were just like kind of talking about in reference to like how America society and equality is being dealt with generally, you know? Like it's all about equality in this film, which was what the sewer people were kind of like looking for more equality and trying to be more visually accepted. I guess a few negatives would be like just the predictable ending that I saw that was happening. I mean, the obvious plot twist. And probably just like, it maybe was probably a little too heady for like a main stage type film. Because I feel like even though I got like some of what he was trying to say in the film, it could kind of almost miss its mark and what it's trying to say sometimes and kind of get lost in the message. But other than that, I mean, it's still a good film. It's my number 1. Those are my top 31 films. So yeah, we are going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm gonna give you guys an outro.
Wendy, darling, light of my life, I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Alright, you guys, I am back. This is the outro. Usually we have a meme of the week and must watch movie of the week, but this time I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am going to take the time and say, for those that are still listening, that I really do appreciate you guys listening, taking the time, hear me rant, talk about some random shit, give me a like. You know, whoever keeps giving me a like. You know, I get like 1 like a video. Hey, let's hopefully move up to 2. double up. But yeah, I really do appreciate it, and yeah, I just hope that, some of the movies I be talking about, you guys actually take the time and actually watch them and check them out and give them a chance. I know, like, not everybody is into like super gory films or super eerie films or ghost films or anything like that, but just to hear me talk and kind of give you guys an idea about what this movie is about, maybe it could help guide you, which is what I want to do, is guide people to whatever movie that they want to watch, and hopefully that they could watch a horror movie more fitting for them than just watching something that like they don't care about, like a Chucky or a Freddy or a Jason type movie, or even paranormal. Maybe you're not into paranormal, or maybe paranormal freaks you the fuck out. I don't know what kind of person you are or what you're scared of. Me personally, I'm not scared of any horror movies. I've ran through that phase already when I was like a kid. I'm pretty much watching almost anything except fucking Serbian film. Fuck that motherfucking film. Don't ever watch that film. But other than that, I'm gonna sign out for you guys. Happy New Year. Hope you guys are safe. Have a good 2020. We'll see you guys in 2020, I should say. And this is Walter Doom with another episode of Let's Talk About Horror. This is America. Don't let them catch you slipping up. Peace and love to everyone. That was so corny. Bye.